I'm going to call him MLK Jr.'s life. So he's a junior, meaning that his dad was also named Martin Luther King. Okay? And I read something interesting as I was reading about him last night. I learned that he was actually born Michael King, and that his dad was also born Michael King. But his dad traveled to Germany, and in Germany there was a person named Martin Luther who was an activist and tried to support all sorts of people. And so he changed his name and his son's name to Martin Luther after that activist in Germany. So we're going to do a timeline. So we're going to start here and go on to here. And we'll start here at January 15th, 1929. Start here at January 15th, 1929. Say that with me.
January 15th, 1999.
Oh. 1929. Say that with me. 1929. So not 1999. 1929. And that's when he was born. So say with me. MLK was born.
MLK was born.
And he was a middle child. Raise your hand if you are a middle child. Meaning he had an older sister and he had a younger brother. So he was a middle child. Lots of middle children here. And his mom was a teacher, and his dad was a minister, so someone who leads a church, okay? And he was always known for his public speaking abilities, so giving speeches. So we know from our video that we watched yesterday and our Reader's Theater that we started yesterday, that in junior high and in high school, he enjoyed speaking in front of people and writing speeches that he would give to groups of people. Okay, so he was born here. Then, in 1948, say that with me.
1948.
He graduated from college. He graduated from college. Now, we learned a little bit yesterday that he went to college when he was only 15 years old. So most people are just entering high school when they're 15 years old. But his college, which was called Morehouse College, they decided to open it up to more people because their enrollment was low, because many people were in the war at that time. And so what they did is they opened it up, and if you could pass an entrance exam, you could attend college early. So that's what he did. He took the exam and he passed it, and so he entered college early. And he went to college in Atlanta, Georgia. Say that with me.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Raise your hand if maybe you've been to Georgia before, or Atlanta, Georgia. So that's where he went to college there. And he studied lots of different things, and he actually graduated from college when he was only 18 years old, which is when most people would graduate from high school, right? So, pretty extraordinary already. So thinking about just his early life and his college and what we've learned so far, what are some words you might use to describe Martin Luther King Jr. as a young adult or a child? So some describing adjective words. Talk to your elbow partner.
Extraordinary.
Great. Scouts are looking for kids who have their eyes up here, I'm sure, paying attention. I did want to show you, here's a picture of him as a boy. And I heard some great words. I heard extraordinary, hardworking. I think all of those would probably describe him. Now in 1953, say that with me.
1953.
He got married.
He got married.
So say he married Coretta Scott. Say that with me. He married Coretta Scott. And together they had 4 children. So, and she stayed home and took care of their children while he worked in the church, and later with his civil rights movement that he's known for. Now in 1955, so he went back to school, and in 1955, he gets his PhD. Say MLK.
MLK
Gets his PhD.
gets his PhD.
Which is a doctorate. So it is higher than going to college. So you might go to college, and then you might go back to school to get your doctorate. Now he wasn't a doctor of medicine, where you go to the doctor and get your body fixed or something like that. He was a doctorate in social issues, and so he did some more schooling and wrote a large paper to earn his PhD. Now that same year, Rosa Parks was arrested. Say that with me.
Rosa Parks was arrested.
Raise your hand if you have heard of Rosa Parks before.
Also,
Great. She was arrested, as you may recall, for being on a bus, and she was asked to move out of her seat to the back of the bus and to stand for a white passenger who got on the bus, and she refused to. She was tired like everyone else. She wanted to sit on the bus, and so she was arrested for that, because in the South, at that time, they had Jim Crow laws. Say that with me. Jim Crow laws, which means that there were different rules for Black Americans and white Americans. So things were not necessarily equal at that time, okay? Now, what also happened that year is that there was a boycott of buses. Say that with me.
a boycott of buses.
And a boycott means when you are not going to do something. So in this case, people decided that they were no longer going to ride the buses. And that was a big deal in that time. Not as many people had cars as they did now. So many people, especially people of color, rode the buses to and from work. So instead of riding the buses, what do you think they did? They walked. They boycotted the buses for, I had to write it down, 385 days. That is more than an entire year. And what that resulted in is that they did get this issue a little bit resolved, where that Jim Crow law was changed, where there wasn't those laws against people of color on the bus, where everyone could sit where they wanted to. So that did change that. But Martin Luther King Jr. did lead those boycotts of those buses. Okay? Now that also put him in the spotlight. So he became famous. So through these boycott the buses, he became famous and was on TV, and people started really listening to him. So in 1957, he gave a record amount of speeches, and he gave 208 speeches. Say that with me.
208
speeches. So he was now traveling all over the country, giving speeches for the civil rights movement, which means having equal opportunities for all people. People of color, maybe people of poverty was another thing that we don't hear about so much, but he did want people who didn't make as much money to have the same rights as everyone else. So he fought a lot for that as well. Yes?
What if you weren't white, or you were an African American, but you were like in the middle? Would that still be colored?
At that time, yes. So they had, kind of laws that would be for colored people or people of color, and then white people. But in the South, there was kind of a great division between the black and the white. So it was a little complicated to think about. Put your hands down just for now. So this is all we're going to get to today. But I'd like you to think about maybe 3 interesting facts you've learned so far about Martin Luther King Jr. and tell them to your elbow partner.